And then the United game, it was a bit of a mess. Let's be honest. It was just everywhere. It wasn't. I feel like it was a very disjointed game. Didn't feel like there was a sincere attempt to really retain possession from either team. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but it was a very sort of, let's just bomb the opposition as much as possible instead of trying to build through play. It was a very different sort of game than I was expecting. I expected Liverpool to control possession more than they actually did.
I think it was a good game, to be honest.
It was a very good game. It was a very good game for the neutral. I enjoyed watching it, but if you're looking at it from a tactical perspective, it just felt like it was a very sort of. It was very haphazard. I didn't think there was a lot of sort of real go.
That could be just down to the lack of tactics, actually. So
yeah.
Whenever United play against the smaller teams, you can very much see that they have this one game plan, which is, overload the wings and just basically beat the team with pace and power. It's just that. But when it comes to the bigger games, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just gets found out, and sometimes he gets away with it when he plays teams like Manchester City, just because of Pep overthinks his own team too much. So then in the end, it just becomes a lot worse, and Manchester United get the win. But when he comes and faces people like Mikel Arteta and even Klopp, you can see that these managers know exactly where to target, and that is literally the midfield and the defense. It was there to see, and to be honest, I was kind of surprised by Dean Henderson's performance as well. It was very bad. So all in all, it was actually a very shocking performance from United, really.
Yeah, you know what? I saw just a game of kind of with the Man United game was really a game of the heart. And the United Liverpool game, it's everything that a fan loves. So, but in terms of the Liverpool United game, I think a lot of it rode on emotion. I love Z when you're talking about United's defense. I think everyone can see what Harry Maguire brings, no matter how much I think the quality is lacking there. Ultimately, the impact that he has, and I just want to extend it maybe to Arsenal, the impact that a technical leader has on the team is immense. I think we as fans don't attribute the success to a team as much as their technical leaders, and we really need to. So when you miss somebody that's going to take charge of that progression, both in set pieces off the ball, but also on the ball and bringing the ball out from the back, it takes so much pressure away and opens avenues to expand play. Even if you don't have too many tactics to progress like Ollie does, at least you have somebody to take it out and provide it to your outlets. So all in all, I think it was a great dichotomy, and I'm sure we'll get into the specifics of each game.
For me, the United game was actually a very good game. They both
for
set
the
up
neutral.
well.
For the neutral, no, I would say.
I think they both set up well in terms of being compact at times. And it was, for the neutral, it was good because there was a lot of duels, many 50-50s. I think one team had 16 shots and the other team had 13. So it was a very good game for the neutral and in tactical setup. But I think United's mistakes in build-up cost them the game because, I swear one goal was a mistake from Fred and someone who passed it to him, led to a Henderson who should have saved the shot, and then they scored the rebound, and the game just changed from there to 2-1, and then it was probably over after that.
One thing I would say is that Henderson's positioning on that Salah goal was horrific. I don't know where he didn't come out, he didn't stay in. He literally left about, I think it was something like 2/3 of the goal open, and I think that was. I mean, for the amount of hype United fans have given Henderson and the great season he did have last season, I was a shocking error from him. I don't know what he was thinking with that one.
Deer in headlights, mate. It's
deer in headlights.
Classic young keepers. What we always teach them: make yourself big and tall and commit to a decision. If you're coming out, you come out. If you're staying in, block the space. Yeah. It was very much a case of that. My overall arching of actually the United game was that I loved it. Actually, I'll be honest.
I really liked it too.
It's the heart of a fan here. Sometimes I'm a big tactical guy, but you know what? I love myself a good basketball game every now and then, and that's really what we saw here. It was quick transitions from back to front. We saw two teams competing at the very best to their ability to win the game, not necessarily how. There was no project to it. It was, we need to win at all costs, and I kind of like that at times. The only thing I will say is I really think United, if I had to criticize United in terms of their season, what they really struggle with, ironically, is set pieces, despite being quite a tall team, which is really quite ironic if you would actually take a look through their team. That's
probably coaching setup. It's probably coaching.
They lack one. And so we'll talk about this in a future podcast, maybe as soon as tomorrow. But what they really do need is actually a set piece coach, but also it's why Harry Maguire is such a big loss, lads. It's not just the progression, it's his leadership on set pieces, and they were a mess on set pieces all night.
For me, I think the main, like, obviously Harry Maguire is a big miss, but for me, I think what United lack is the ability of someone to, I would say, an Ndidi type player. I think that's what they are missing at the moment. Someone who's going to break up and move play.
Talked about United and what I would do. In terms of Liverpool, there's been insane hyperbole about how bad Liverpool have been. And I can't sit here as an objective person and claim that Arteta didn't have the tools and Liverpool didn't have the tools. I think the idea that Liverpool won't be back or are suddenly off.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We've talked about leaders at the back, and they've had,
they lost theirs.
Especially if they get Konate next season as well.
Well, even forgetting Konate, what they have on the injury table right now is a
ridiculous.
Significant impact to absolutely anybody. And we're talking about the best center back in the league by far.
All of their center backs.
The only thing that worries me with Liverpool is that midfield balance. I don't know how to fit Thiago. Is he making him a cam? Is he making him an 8? How are we fixing?
Just like
Henderson and Fabinho, it works. I understand, but are we having Thiago further up the pitch? Are we having him sort of as another 8?
Yeah, I don't think.
He's going to sit, but he's going to sit in a free role like how Scholes was able to do. And you're going to have to surround him with runners and box-to-box presence to let him do that. And he needs the Virgil van Dijk and the Gomez from behind to step up and help him athletically. So you surround a Thiago with a 4-point system, I call it as a coach. You need your 2 box-to-box ahead, and you need your center backs behind that are able to defend a high line. By the way, hence a Konate link. Wink, wink. Like, it makes sense. Yeah. They're trying to defend from the halfway line, just like we are. But from a Liverpool's perspective, I just want to touch on it. The idea, we saw a lot of what was best about them in the game, I believe. Yeah. We saw the return of Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was clear man of the match. The idea that he can't be selected for England was ridiculous from Gary Neville, and everybody in the punditry are actually off their rocks, in my opinion.
I don't understand.
The lad is next level, and he's definitely going to move into midfield, by the way. I do see Trent Alexander-Arnold actually being that right 8 that they may look to need. But they have Curtis Jones right now, who's also filling a great role for them. The only thing I want to say is that we actually saw a return to their transition play, and that was because, and their press. And so a big reason for that is because they look to shuttle the ball out wide as quick as possible, whereas before I felt that they were trying to appease Thiago too much, looking at a possession-based approach, where they kind of left their trademark and their bread and butter. So it was a two-pronged approach. You lost your identity in terms of A, what made you successful, but B, you lost your leaders, which is a big thing.
And a lot of the times they complained this year, it wasn't really about their defense. It was about their attackers. Their attack has not been efficient. I saw a stat somewhere on my timeline the other day showing how many players overperformed in their XG last year for Liverpool in terms of their attackers compared to this year, and how they've underperformed their XG this year. You know, this thing that we always laugh about, I don't know, on timeline, that XG eventually works itself out. If you look at their attack has been woeful this year. There have been times where they've been secure in the game defensively, and they've had chances, but they haven't put their chances away. And then obviously they got punished. And I think we suffer ourselves from that issue, don't we? We've dominated games this year where we haven't put our chances away, and then we know that we don't have the elite defenders at the back, and then we've conceded a sloppy goal, and that's it.
The only pushback I would say on that is that the tactical mesh of the Klopp team has been completely. It's been changed so many times over the season that he doesn't have the build up going forward.
It's what I said before, mate. He
yeah.
catered to Thiago instead of playing Thiago into his system. But I'm really glad, Nam, you brought that up, because it's not just a Liverpool problem. Guys, extend it to the league. Let's look through this right now. Tottenham, would you guys say that they've been clinical? No.
100%.
They were
Well,
early in the
Chelsea.
season.
they were under Mourinho when he very
They were.
Earlier in the season, they were too clear.
And we have to look at the season
and
as
everyone
a
loved
whole.
Mourinho
The
for that.
season
No,
as a
but I
whole.
mean that earlier in the season, Son scored like 11 goals from that 13.
A little bit, like he had a purple, but I would say so. If you look at Tottenham over the
They
season,
just had a Spurs season. They had a Spurs season. They started well.
Spit on the floor. Hold on, guys.
Exactly. So don't worry about it.
Sorry, I shouldn't have led with them. But Chelsea, same thing. Lack of clinical edge. Arsenal, lack of clinical edge. Liverpool, lack of clinical edge. And I think you've scratched the surface of a larger point that I've been trying to make on Twitter for absolutely months. And it has to do really with COVID football, I think. And I have this little thesis in mind where the idea of fans and the impact of fans are massive to the ability of somebody converting in those half chances. When you're looking at a type of scrimmage game like this, as a coach, the tactical battle typically outweighs the output of a player. And I think we've seen too many people underperforming their XG from typical to say, oh, it's just coincidence. You're looking at Aubameyang, you're looking at Mane, you're looking at big players who have consistently overperformed for seasons. When you look at Aubameyang, it actually makes my point quite clear. In the last 7 seasons, he's actually overperformed his XG and hit over 20 goals a season. This is the first time in 7 years. And he's just the extreme of my point. But I think what I'm getting at is you're seeing this in kind of COVID football. I think it's actually kind of a consequence of this, where we saw the lack of a home game advantage. But I think it actually suits the midfield and the defenders this game, this type of game, the lack of emotion swing. It actually suits them, and it actually hinders.
For sure.
Because it allows the midfield to defense to be not big. Defenders don't want the emotion. They want to be able to carry a sort of stable sort of environment to be able to sort of focus throughout the game. And in midfield, they want to be able to think their way through the game. Attackers rely on emotion because they rely on that instinctive movement, that final third thing that you can't coach to players.
They thrive off the chaos. They thrive off the chaos, and when you can control the narrative, you control the game. That's what I always say to my young players.
So, who was your man of the match for the Liverpool game then?
Firmino, wasn't it? 2 goals.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, clear for me. Ran the show from right back. Did the thrust and actually returned, for me, the identity back to what made Liverpool great again was their use of the fullbacks again. So I've got to give it to him in terms of his overall impact.
To be honest, I'm going to take that back because it's the kind of superficial punditry that I kind of hate. Oh, he's got 2 goals, man of the match. If I'm going to say man of the match, Trent is a good. Trent maybe. If I was actually thinking about it instead of being reactionary. It's probably Trent,
Okay, you guys are picture. Trent was very good, but I'd probably say maybe Genie, Wijnaldum, because I think Liverpool's progression in that game was much better than what it's been throughout the whole season. I think Wijnaldum was very crucial in helping them spread the ball, like you said, to return to their basis. So I think Wijnaldum was probably their best player.
Which was ironic because I think if you ask Liverpool, I don't have too many of them fans, but my one critique is actually Wijnaldum's lost that all season. I think he's really lacked being incisive between the thirds. But no, I'd agree. I think he's a good shout.
Game to analyse, but I could have given it to Trent. I do agree that Wijnaldum needed to play better because he hadn't played better in a few of the other games. He was getting criticism from Liverpool supporters. I know because, as I said, I've got lots of friends with Liverpool supporters. And they were being very critical about whether his mind was actually at the club anymore or whether it was somewhere else. So I think the dropping of Mane was a big sort of message to the rest of the squad. Klopp was very clever because he's completely not been with it. And I think that gave a message. I mean, Trent's fighting his own personal battle. I think his personal battle is with Southgate, right? Gini Wijnaldum wants to show the supporters that, he's still going to be loyal regardless of whatever happens next year with it. Right, so they both are what I would say valid shouts.